Okay, so I need Ben, Jay, Uri, Gerard, Pascal, Dominic. Just want you guys to all stand in a line right here. And I want everybody else to stand up. If you guys can all stand up. I used to do this every morning during my morning stand-ups. So if you were part of my team, I had a pink office, and we would do this. So are you guys ready? I'm going to give you some slides. Let's see. Okay. This is what I used to have everybody chant during our 10-minute stand-ups. So I'll start, and then you guys all just like jump up and go like this, okay? Ready? I'm amazing! Oh, come on, guys. I'm inspirational! I am making a difference! I'm changing my life! And I'm changing the lives of others. Thanks, guys. Round of applause for all of you who participated. So, yeah, that's kind of what it was like to work with me for a while. Yeah, what I learned, though, is after about 6 months, you can't keep it up every single day. So I wouldn't recommend doing that in a startup. But how many of you guys believe that you guys are doing something amazing? Is anybody doing anything amazing in the audience? I have 1, 2, 3, few people. Okay. Sometimes to do something great in life, you guys just need to believe in yourselves, right? So there is greatness you can achieve if you just believe. Is there a song, Jay, to If You Believe? I don't know. Josh Groban's song, yes. Jay is my jukebox. So when you believe in yourself and your ideas, the 4 people who raised their hands, anything is possible. And those of you guys who actually have the courage to do so are ultimately the ones who do end up changing the world. And I think that's a really, really beautiful thing. If you have ever thought to yourself about the product that you're building and what can actually do, I mean, to think that you can build a product and it can move an industry forward, that you can actually gain a few percentages of market share. That is something really, really, really powerful, right? And again, those of you guys who have the courage to actually do so are going to be the ones who lead the markets forward. And you all, and us, everybody, are our future leaders. So if you're sitting there thinking, no, how can I change the world? That's impossible. I'm just a person doing something random. You are absolutely wrong. And I think one of the biggest disservices you can do in your life, the biggest faults you can have in your life is by just not even trying to do so, because you never know. You have to test yourself, figure it out, see if it's actually true. And when you do finally get started, if you haven't already, there's going to be a lot of growing pains in startup, right? But I guarantee you they are all worth it in the end. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a few common startup pains that I experienced when I was building, a bunch of startups, and some of the things I've seen as a board member, a mentor, and an advisor to different startups. My name's Tracy. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started over 10 companies in the past 15 years. I'm an advisor to several startups. I've sat on several boards before. Last December, I sold my last company, and there I was CEO, and I focused mainly on sales and marketing. So today, I am a speaker and a Google developer expert. I love JavaScript, so I do things development related to Ember, Angular, and React. I'm a co-founder of This.media and This.labs. I love writing about technology, and I'm also a podcaster on Modern Web, and I'm a mentor to a lot of junior developers. So when I look at all the trials an entrepreneur goes through, there's sort of 5 large categories that I feel like really affected my life as a founder and for the growth of the company. First one was sales and marketing. How do you gain awareness for your company? How do you grow the revenue? Managing technology, how I approached this and how I approached my team. Managing the growth and the culture of the company I wanted to build. Zeroing in on what to focus on. And just general growing pains of being a founder. It's hard. So let's jump right into sales and marketing. I think one of the first things is, and Jay and I talked about this during our backstage track, if you're waiting for your brand to be built, you're waiting for a logo, you're waiting for a new website, something, you're just waiting. You're really actually just creating excuses for yourself, right? It is absolutely much more effective to do something valuable today than hope that something or something else is going to do it for you. And when it's time to dig in and actually execute on your sales and marketing and you've launched your company, things don't actually get easier. So whether you're doing sales and marketing yourself or you're hiring somebody to do it, ideas are easy, but implementation is really hard. People can come in and they can tell you about all these amazing things that you should do as a company, but unless they're able to actually implement those things and achieve results, then those things actually mean nothing, right? So usually when you're thinking about sales and marketing, you again, or somebody else, is coming up with these grandiose ideas of how you're going to go to market differently, how your product is drastically different. But I have to say, it's very easy to be different. It doesn't mean it's right. It's extremely difficult to be better. So if you look at Chrome or Firefox, right, like they're basically the same thing. They're addressing the same need, but yes, they are trying to differentiate themselves in what they focus on and what they offer. But I think one of the things when you're starting or even as you're building a product is you really have to be humble and think about the idea that, you know, your idea usually is going to compete with somebody else's idea. So don't get lost in thinking you're different just because of one feature, because you're probably not. That might be sad, but it's true. I think also remember that when you're building your business and you're thinking about sales and marketing, there's these traditional methods, right? Traditional sales, traditional PR, et cetera. You have to remember that these traditional methods are traditional for a reason, and it's because they've been proven before. So a great example is if everybody in your market is doing paid advertising, you should probably be doing paid advertising because they're probably doing it for a really good reason. The traditional route of building a business is really going to be the foundation and your key to success, because if you can master that, then it's really easy to add on a bunch of like spice and excitement, right? There's going to be plenty of people in the market, and they might do flashy, awesome things, and you might think like, whoa, this is so cool. But don't get caught by all the flashy, exciting things that you actually see. You should be really thinking about, okay, what are the things I'm doing and how are they going to achieve ROI for me? So if you see your competitor doing it, really take a second to think about it before you run off and jump off a hill because everybody else is doing it, right? It might not be the best idea for you. After you've built your foundation for a good business, then again, it's really easy to add on top of that and find your competitive advantage and compete better than your competitors. So spending money is a touchy thing, especially when you're doing startup. I think when you are building startups, you feel like you have to conserve money because you don't have a lot of it. And it's also hardest, I think, for people to spend money on things that they don't understand. So probably, a lot of you guys in this room are developers, and when you don't understand a sales or a marketing process, you're scared to make that decision, right? Like, okay, these people are telling me all these things. I need to spend money on this, but I'm going to delay because I don't actually know if I'm making the right decision. I feel like business people feel exactly the same way. Sometimes when it comes to technology, if they don't know and it's just sort of scary to them, they don't actually spend time investing in it. So I encourage you guys to think about these opportunities and these investments that you need to make in your business in sort of incremental phases. If you need to hire somebody, let's say a sales and marketing person, and you need to pay them $120,000 a year, that sounds like a lot. And that might be, twice as much as you're paying anybody else when you're getting started, right? But this person could be so amazing. But oh my God, $120,000, how do I even afford that? When you think about things like that, you should be thinking about it more from an incremental perspective. So $120,000 really actually means you're spending $10,000 a month. So if you hire somebody and for 4 weeks they work for you and they don't work out, you're making a $10,000 bet. So don't psych yourself out, right? Just make decisions, try new ideas, take risks where you can. And not everything is going to work, but you really shouldn't fail before you actually even try. This is one of my favorite quotes. The best way to predict the future is to create it. I love this quote because this is sort of how I approach my entire life. So anytime I enter a market, I assess what's around me. And if there isn't what I need to be successful, I create it. So if you're building and you don't have a place to find customers, create one. If there's not a forum to gather industry leaders, create it. By putting your company in front and leading by creating exactly what you need, you're going to become a leader just by default, right? So I think one thing to remember is you never actually start off as a leader when you enter a market, but if you're not the leader today, so if you start today, you're going to be the leader by tomorrow. Sales and marketing might still seem like something that's hard or magical, right? Because, I don't know, I'm assuming most of you guys are developers in the room. But this is kind of how I feel about some types of code. So AI stuff or complex algorithms, seems hard, seems like magic. But I'm always really surprised by every time I sort of peel something back. Like Uri and I paired on some IoT stuff with Angular and RxJS the other day, actually yesterday. And once he taught me sort of how to configure the Arduino and things like that, I realized it was so easy, right? And I'm sure you guys feel that way a lot about code. But I think one thing to remember with sales and marketing is it's not actually rocket science. Much like code is a simple process, right? Setting up your environment, building features. You really should look at sales and marketing the same. So let's get into one of my favorite topics, which is managing tech. When I first learned how to code, this was a life changer. I realized all the things I was doing wrong. So how many of you guys like to prioritize features? Yeah, nobody. One. Thanks, Jay. No. So there's always like 50 different features you want to work on, right? And it's really, really, really hard to sometimes prioritize those things. But I would say that when you're thinking about features, you should be thinking about it as what am I going to build today to build for value, or build this week for value? What is the one feature that's going to help me be successful in my company? Or if I'm spending money developing, what's the biggest pain point within the company, and how can I build software around that to solve that problem? So this is like probably the best and like only way you should be prioritizing features. Another huge disagreement between tech and business people is meetings. Who loves meetings? I hate meetings now. I used to love them. So let's look at it from a business person's perspective, right? A business person, let's say you're a CEO of a company, your job is relationships, and you build relationships by having meetings. So it's really normal to project that type of thing onto tech people, right? Like you feel like, okay, if you're not in meetings and like building relationships, how are you productive? You're not doing anything with your day. And we know that's not true. And CEOs and business people just love to hear updates. What's going on? What's going on? Initially, I thought it was really great to have my CTO in meetings. I felt like he was more productive because I was communicating with him and he was telling me what was going on. And I was packed with 12-hour meeting days, and he was packed with no meetings because, his job is to code, right? But I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was I saw his calendar. He has nothing on it, so I could scatter meetings like, okay, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1:30, 4 o'clock. It's going to be great. You have nothing else going on, right? Once I finally started coding, I realized how wrong I was. So I think technical people, we need your help. You need to teach business people why meetings are destructive to your productivity, and help people create a structure, business people especially, create a structure in which meetings are okay because you have to have meetings, but do it based on a specific time of day so that you actually have enough time to get things done. Really, really, really key. Tech debt. Who loves tech debt? I don't. So, the first time tech debt was explained to me, I understood the concept. Like, okay, yeah, tech debt, that makes sense. And my CTO would ask me to weigh on options. He'd say, okay, Tracy, if you need this feature tomorrow, we're going to incur some tech debt. Do you want to wait a few days? to like do it the right way. And so I would make these decisions, right? But the problem was, yes, tech debt, sure. I never actually understood what tech debt really was. So it was this intangible thing, and I was making decisions, and I wasn't actually making good, informed decisions. So tech people, when you say tech debt to somebody, it sounds like something they can't see or feel or touch, right? So this is a very painful process, but if you sat down with somebody and you said, all right, you want this feature, I'm going to code this feature right now the way you want it, and then show you what I have to do to refactor it. Is that meeting 5 hours, 2 hours, whatever? It's going to be a very frustrating process for you, but I guarantee you that it's going to help you in business and in your startup if you're leading a startup. Business people, trust your team when they say tech debt. If you have it, you really have to allow time to refactor, clean up tech debt, because I think you don't want to have a feature that all of a sudden a sign-up window takes a week because your code is just really scary. It's something really important to understand. So another big impact area when talking about growing a startup is talking about how to manage the growth of your startup and creating the culture you actually want. I think the first things first, let's talk about team dynamics. So especially as co-founder, you really have to understand that it takes two flints to make a fire, right? So when there's issues, a lot of times we as humans jump to specific conclusions, or we side with people specifically, or this person isn't performing, so I'm going to fire them. But you really have to take a step back and be introspective, because if there's a problem and you do need to fire somebody, you should actually be thinking about what is that problem and how am I a part of that problem? And if that problem continues, is it me or is it my team, right? You need to sort of really be humble and actually be asking yourself those questions. I think the other thing is, if there's conflict within your organization, don't jump to conclusions, right, based on whatever it is, but take a step back, reflect, and then act accordingly. So that's a hard one, but this is really, really, really important when you're growing your company. I think another part of growing a healthy team is just being vulnerable. You have to teach your team to be vulnerable too. So opening lines of communication to create this dynamic in which your team feels comfortable talking to each other, asking for help. I think as leaders, founders, or even just as team members in general, right? If you ask for help, you ask questions, you show you don't know all the answers, it's going to create this sort of dynamic where autonomous structures are going to be created within your organization. And those people who want to rise, who want to help, who want to do amazing things are going to be able to rise up with these opportunities to shine. And that is a really, really, really good culture you want to build within a company. So your startup may grow from 5 to 10 to 20 to 100 people, right? Maybe even more. At Dishcrawl, I suddenly had 250 people under me in a matter of 6 months. I went from working out of my apartment to having 20 people in the office, maybe in less than 3 months. As you grow, especially from the 5 to the 20, there's a few things to keep in mind. One thing is conversations between co-founders, right? So 2 people working on a problem can have a very different dynamic than you having to have, let's say, 5 people in a room making a decision. So if you're fighting with your co-founder and you guys have that sort of dynamic, it's really important to adjust those conversations over time and build productive sort of dynamics and relationships. One thing I remember, so my co-founder was amazing. When I was wanting to build this product, I posted something on Reddit. I wanted a designer to design 5 mock-ups for me for $300. He called me and told me that I didn't need a designer. So what? Who is this random guy telling me that? And then he proceeded to tell me what I actually needed. And then I said, okay, you're crazy enough. We're going to sit down. He built me the product in about 2 weeks. And then we were co-founders for the rest of the time. So that dynamic carried on. Every time I had a vision of the product, it would start with a fight. That wasn't really a fight. It was more like a brother-sister relationship of, hey, I really think we need this. And, he's like, no, I don't, blah, blah, blah. And, what he really wanted to do and what we ended up doing was spend 6-hour Trello boarding the features. And in the end, we obviously agreed to everything. But as we grew to 5 people and we started bringing the other people into that process, we were scaring our team because like you can't argue with your co-founder in front of other people, right? It's kind of like, whoa, you guys are demented or twisted. So I really wish that I had been able to adjust those conversations sooner and realize that as I was growing versus like this, okay, we're in a situation, okay, we need to take a few weeks to fix this thing. So another huge consideration for culture is diversity. This is Ben's favorite slide. Yes. So we all talk about diversity, right? It's a very common topic in the JavaScript world, but it's really important. And the reason it's so important is because you want to hire like-minded people, but you also want to be able to have different insights in how to grow a company. And we tend to be attracted to people like us, and we also tend to attract people like us. So this is a problem because when you're hiring, it's very easy to say like, oh, I don't feel like this person's a culture fit. But what does that actually mean, right? Like you should actually be taking emotion out of it, thinking about who's the most qualified based on the discussions, and then hire those people. At Dishcrawl, I had my director of operations, Amy, and we were in our late 20s. And she was building the initial team, the operations team. And so, we hired one person. She was great. We hired another person. By the time we ended up hiring maybe about 5 girls in the office, it sort of turned into this episode of Mean Girls, which was like my worst nightmare. But the problem was that like we hired all the same type of people, right? Because they were kind of similar to us. They probably reminded us of like ourselves a few years back or something like that. And I think the best way to describe this is if you have a bag of red marbles, do you want a blue marble? No. If you have a bag of rainbow marbles from the very beginning, right, you're totally down to add as many colors as you want. So like this idea of diversity, especially in the very beginning, is so important. And once you have the problem, it is much harder to fix. Because again, you don't want to mess up a bag of like single colored marbles with a marble that doesn't match the color. Keeping your people happy. This is so important. And I think that as people, we sometimes project feelings like, oh, I feel so excited. Like, for example, I'm so excited about an exit. Well, you might be freaking out the person you're talking to, and they might want to leave the company because they don't want an exit, right? So one of the best questions to ask people when you're working with them is, what do you want out of life? And I ask this all the time because I really want to understand what people are motivated by. Some people are motivated by fame. Some people are motivated by getting to a large exit. Some people are motivated by building a huge company that lasts forever. Some people are motivated by just feeding their family, right? If you don't understand those things, then as you're going through a startup journey, which is extremely difficult, you can't help other people achieve their own goals, and you can't also have conversations with them that actually motivate them in a way that's productive to you. I think another thing is your core team. So there's key people that are going to help you build your company. And if you can't keep your team, the constant strain of retraining people is going to be really hellish for you. So at Dishcrawl, I had my right hand, Amy. She did operations for me. And then I had my CTO, Jeff. If I had lost either of them, it would have taken 6 months to a year to maybe the company would have died if I didn't have these key people, right? So it's really important to listen to those people and keep rapport with them. Structure. Wow. So people need and love structure. Who knew? I didn't. One thing I failed to do in the beginning was I would hire these people and I'd be like, yeah, just go do it, right? They're like, figure it out. And I think we tend to do that, especially in startup, like, yeah, just figure it out. People like to know what they're doing, do it, and then be rewarded. That's like job satisfaction, right? Once I realized this, because I mean, if you're handed a task and then you fail at it, like, do you feel good? No, not really. So what I would do is, and what I do now is every time I give somebody a task, I think about it. I think about where it needs to go. I write down a process if it needs a process. And then we implement it. So that helps me scale out of a situation. So every time this task comes up again, they don't have to talk to me about it. And then the other thing is, as you're growing, it helps your team and other people coming on pick up a process easier. So it prepares your team to start thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to prepare myself to be the manager of the job that I'm currently doing? So you guys can think about it as kind of like writing a test, right? Like make sure when you add in features, you need to have tests so that existing features don't break. This is sort of the same thing when it comes to structure. Work-life balance. Yeah, I still struggle with this a lot. So especially as owners of a company or even working on a team, right? Like sometimes I'll work a lot and I burnt out. I burnt out earlier this January. It's important when your team is working hard and, like, yes, reward them for it. Yes, this is so amazing. But you need to say, hey, take a break off. You also, as yourself, need to set an example. So it's not amazingly healthy if I'm emailing my team from, midnight to 5 a.m. All the time. I mean, once in a while it's okay, right? But you shouldn't expect that of them. And you really need to, startup is long. It's not a sprint. So making sure you have work-life balance is really important. So let's talk about firing. Firing is a really difficult one, and I think nobody really likes to talk about it. It's always a touchy subject, but you really need to have a plan for it. So everybody feels tension in startup, and if there's a bad seed, you need to get rid of that immediately. One time I had a bad seed, I was afraid to fire her because, again, I had this sort of mean girls thing happening in the office. So I was like, oh my God, if one of them leaves, all of them are gonna leave. They're all the same, right? So it sucked, and I didn't fire this person for about 4 weeks. And what I realized after I fired them, there was this one person that I thought was going to leave. I was really scared that this person was going to leave if I had fired this other person. But she came to me, and she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for firing this person. They were weighing me down. I wasn't able to do my job, and I had to be a friend at work. And wow, that was interesting, right? So get rid of those bad seeds immediately. Also, be transparent. So when you're hiring and firing, I grew really fast, right? So I had 250 people under me just almost immediately. And since we were getting so big, I let my HR manager let go of a few people. And I thought this was the right professional way to do things, but I think when you're fired and you don't know why you're fired, you get really stressed out, and then you feel like, for me, for example, I think the people I had to let go didn't feel like I was listening or didn't know why, so they decided to post all these things on Facebook and freak everybody on the team out, and it sucked. But this was because they weren't able to talk to me personally, right? And so it's really important to just think about that when you're doing things like firing and hiring, so that your team understands, so that it's not it just doesn't become a hot mess. So let's talk about focus. Focus is so essential, right? Jay and I, again, talked about this in the backstage track. When you focus in a company, in a startup, you should be focusing on the good, not the bad. Think about what's working and then make sure to double down on it. So one example, we were in so many different cities, but we were trying to get more cities and maximize revenue of all those cities. It took us a few months to really realize that, oh, hey, certain cities are doing 5 times better than these other cities. And then once we focused on those cities and sort of doubled down on them, our revenue drastically increased, right? And this was really great. So think about the great stuff, not the bad stuff, and hopefully that helps you a little bit. I think another thing is incremental progress. So sometimes when you're building a company, you think things should be big and flashy all the time. And in the beginning, they are, because it's we didn't have a product. We have a product. Oh my God, somebody wrote about us. Oh my God, I'm making a first hire, right? But as you get more mature, you realize that not everything is magical every single week. And focusing on continued progress and incremental progress is what is going to help you succeed. So when you see things in the media Uber being so successful, it took them a while to do that, right? You just didn't see all the incremental progress. Customers. Yes, you should absolutely focus on learning from your unhappy customers. But again, I think when you focus on problems and you look at the squeaky wheel, you want to fix the squeaky wheel. You have to take a step back sometimes when you're stuck on a problem and just think about, do I really want to solve this problem? Does this really matter or not? I mean, obviously make sure that you're leaving your customer in good hands or giving good explanations and treating them well. But at the same time, if your customer is not using the product the way you want it to and you don't want to focus on it, you sort of need to let go of that problem and focus on other things. The last topic we're going to talk about is being a founder and the struggles you go through with this. So sometimes the only thing holding you back is yourself. It's always the right choice to move forward in a business instead of delaying for some concept of perfection. Things should always be good enough to release and then be released, because if you never test the market or your ideas, you're never going to figure out what actually works. Another big one is taking ownership of key processes. If you don't understand something, if there's a key process and you're not managing it yourself or figuring it out yourself, or somebody from your core team isn't doing it, then I guarantee you're not going to be successful. Because if you don't know, then you can't manage, right? And if you can't manage, then you don't really have anything. So you can compare this to code reviews. Like, if I'm code reviewing WebAssembly, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what to do with that information, right? So as I was building out my sales process, I knew marketing, but I didn't know sales. And so I wasn't able to tell if somebody was doing their job. And by the time had passed, it was too late, right? And I had to let people go. So, God, I talk about firing a lot of people, but I mean, there's churn in startup. So I had to go through 4 key sales hires to figure out what was working and what was not. And it wasn't until I took ownership of that sales process and figured it out myself that I was successful. And it was one of the most frustrating parts of the company for me and building the company, but it was also definitely to this day one of the most rewarding things and one of the things I use, like finally figuring out sales, to build my companies. So please do that. People are so important. I think my philosophy is always you should leave people better than you found them. So back to my comment about figuring out what people want to do with their lives. They're on this journey with you. They're building this company with you, right? It's so important to understand who they are and how you can help them along in their journey for life so that you can have a meaningful impact in their lives. Because startup, your startup is going to fail or not, right? But those relationships you build and being able to make a good impact on the people you employ or your co-founders or whoever is, I feel like, more important than just building something. Feedback. If people tell you something's wrong, don't get mad at them. So if Ben told me Jay was mad at me, are you guys on their phones? I'm just kidding. But if Ben was like, hey, Tracy, Jay's really mad at you, I can say, Ben, what the hell? Like, why are you causing drama within the company? Or like, Jay, what the hell? Why are you talking about me? Why didn't you come to me, right? I can do those things, but it's really destructive. How you should actually react is, oh my God, this is so great. You should be really thankful that Ben is willing to come to you and talk to you about a problem. Because now you have a problem, you know there's a problem, and you can fix that problem, right? So these back channels that are created within your company, you should listen to, and I think you need to not be confrontational, but you also need to show your team that you're willing to help solve those problems and you're willing to change. Like, you're willing to take feedback and fix it, right? But also stand ground when needed. So this is an important thing for being a founder. We went through a bunch of things today, obviously. Sales and marketing, managing tech, growth and culture, focus, being a founder. I think one thing to remember is that startup is simply about taking the first step, right? If you have already taken that first step, you should make sure to thank yourself and be nice to yourself for all the hard work and the courage you've had to actually do so. When you're thinking about what you're building or what you're about to build, I think some more words of advice from Aaron Levi, who co-founded Box. He said, the product that wins is the one that bridges customers to the future, not the one that requires a giant leap. So time and time again, I've said this a few times, is we hear quotes from entrepreneurs is make incremental progress to push your life and the life of your startup forward versus waiting for those big things that happen. I think one of the most important things in life, right, is just growth. If you have growth and you have progress for your own personal sake or for your company's sake, that should be enough for you. And I just want to leave you with that. So, thank you.